Hey everyone, and welcome to the weekly Wrangle number 4. My name is Tyler Bay, CG Forge, in case we haven't met. And today I want to talk about saving time with tight deadlines. Last week I had a really great comment about how to work with other studios, how to save time as a Houdini artist. So let's check out that comment here. This is from Domantas. He says, interesting topic, Tyler. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on dealing with tight deadlines when working with new clients in one of these videos. Lately, I've been struggling a lot with working remotely with other freelancers, and I've just been thinking, how could I manage the situation better? I was creating effects in Houdini with another freelance artist, animating, lighting, and shading in Maya. We had lots of difficulties jumping from Maya to Houdini, and then back again to Maya because the studio that we were making this project for had their whole pipeline built around Maya only. So I figure it must be a common problem for Houdini artists adapting and inserting themselves into established pipelines, and wanted to know how someone else would approach this situation. Have a great day. So that is a great comment, Demontas. Thanks for asking that. Long story short, takeaway number 1, just say no. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. This is a great question. I put together about 4 tips that I think will really help you out here. So let me share the other screen and I'll go ahead and play that. So tip number 1, prepare as much as possible. If I get hired for, let's say, a gig and they want me to make some pyro effects, I'm not starting off by creating nodes from scratch in Houdini. I already have a scene file made ahead of time that was made on my own time. Actually, hold on one second. I think the audio wasn't going. Let me try that again. Let's see. This is the beauty of live right here. Okay. Here we go. Let's try that again. Sorry about that. So, tip number 1, prepare as much as possible. If I get hired for, let's say, a gig and they want me to make some pyro effects, I'm not starting off by creating nodes from scratch in Houdini. I already have a scene file made ahead of time that was made on my own time where I figured out pyro, I made it look really great, and that becomes my starting point for the gig. Because you see, if a client hires you for something, they're trying to get something done quickly and as soon as possible for their situation. And that means that you don't really have the time to tinker around or figure out how the system works. You have to show up, ideally knowing how all the stuff works. And if you can just copy and paste from a scene file, that will save you potentially days worth of time, especially towards the front end of the project. So you can't prepare for every situation, but as much as you can, do the work ahead of time, and it'll pay huge dividends. Tip number 2, keep it close to the vest, especially towards the beginning of the project. You see, every art project kind of goes something like this. It sucks, it's terrible, it's okay, and then it's amazing, all at the very end. And so what you don't want to do is you don't want to freak the client out towards the beginning of the process when things are kind of rough looking, because what that might encourage is the client trying to take over the wheel. And the problem is that the client is not as good at making technical decisions as you are because you work with the medium every day and they don't. But if they see that, hey, this looks really bad right now, I got to do something to figure this out, then that's when they start giving you feedback that might take you down roads that end up costing a lot of time and not really getting them to the place that they ultimately want to go. And so because of that fact, I recommend keeping the progress close to the vest. In other words, to yourself towards the beginning as much as possible. And if you have a client that wants to really micromanage things, just politely explain that you need time with the medium and instead try to schedule a time to present that's more formal and official, maybe a couple days from now, right? You have to let the client know, because they might not know that in order for this to turn out really good,
you need some alone time with the medium to get things sorted straight. So again, keep it close to the vest. You don't want the client leading you down paths which are a bad idea because you freak them out with something that's very rough. Tip number 3, give the client options. So, we talk about kind of keeping it to the vest. Once you had maybe a day or two to work with it, you've had some alone time with with Houdini and figuring things out. Now it's time to present to the client. And when you do so, try to make the client think about what they like versus what they don't like on the project. And the way that you do that is you give the client options. So instead of giving just, one render image and saying, what do you think? Well, if you do that, the client's going to look at the render image and they're going to try to find something wrong because they need something to say, right? Instead of doing that, it's better to say, I have 3 options. What do you think about this, this, and this? Now you're getting the client to think about which version they like more. You're thinking more positively, and it's less likely that the client is going to come back to you with a huge list of changes because you've got them thinking in this what do I like mode versus what do I not like mode. So if you're in a project, try to, again, keep the tone positive, and the way that you do that is by showing up with options. And then lastly, try to migrate once at the beginning and once at the end. So let's say that you have a simulation, you're in Houdini, and the rest of the studio is in Maya, right? You want to send over some test example at the very beginning of that project, just to be sure that everything works nicely and that there's nothing on someone else's end that needs to be changed with let's say, a limbic cache. So you want those issues to be seen right off the bat as much as possible. And then you don't want to really give any other versions of it until you're pretty much done. What happens and what can take a lot of time in this situation is something like this. Let's say that you, at the end of the day, try to cache out an Alembic file, and the rest of the studio that's in Maya is trying to bring in that Alembic file. Well, at some point or another, somebody's going to be working with an old version of the simulation that you're working on, or whatever it is, right? And if they're working on an old version, then they might use that old version for, let's say, a lighting review, that you have no idea about. And so the client might say, okay, well, what happened to the simulation? I thought we were doing this, even though they're in a lighting review. And so, in other words, you never want the client to be reacting to old versions of something, because that becomes confusing for them. It becomes confusing for you because now you have to deal with notes for an old version, but now the current version is somewhere else. So, you know what I mean? You always want the client to be seeing the latest version. And if you have a bunch of these versions floating around the studio, that can cause a mess. It could cause a lot of time. And that's what you want to avoid. So again, once at the beginning, just in case there's any major pipeline things that need to be addressed, and then give yourself a bit of time at the very end of the production to migrate over for the final version. And that way you don't have all the potential for error in the middle, but you're trying to address stuff at the beginning and you've given yourself time at the end just in case. So there you go. These 4 things are what I would do. Hope that helps. Oh, shoot. I got to get this audio thing figured out, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, anyway, what I was saying is if you guys have comments besides the audio, I apologize about that again. Let me know. Just want to let you know that Houdini for the new artist is up. And that's about it for today. Yeah. Sorry again about the audio stuff here, guys. Yeah, besides that, Houdini for the new artist 2 is in the works. So Tweaky is going to be the new fan favorite here. And yeah, I think that's about it. I would say also when it comes to these studio situations, you have to realize that right now there's studios who are working in Maya and they're not changing because they don't like change. And what's happening slowly over time here is that folks that stay in Maya and they're not really adapting to the new technology and the new software workflows and things like that, they're going to be harder and harder to work with. So, I didn't put this here in the video, in the pre-recorded video, but I just want to let you guys know that when you are working with a studio that's only using Maya, and they might be using like 10-year-old workflows, the situation is limited just by nature. You are going to run into issues. Basically, what's happened with Maya over the years is that the developers at Autodesk haven't done a great job at keeping up with modern workflows, making Maya more stable. They've been trying to do stuff like that, but really studios rely on just tons of Python scripts. It's kind of like a Frankenstein pipeline in a lot of ways. And if you ever end up working with the Maya studio, you just have to maybe even budget a little bit of extra time to work with them because it's just kind of the nature of the beast. So all of this will range pretty dramatically depending on the clients. But in general, I would say that these 4 tips could save you some time. And I hope it does. I hope that you guys are able to work better with other studios with these tips. So shout out to Marzarul, Gabriel, GK, Becca, Raphael, and Gary. Hope you guys have a great Monday and take care.